Hi, everybody. This is Saad for the Sad Truth. Do you know what is the force that men are most scared of? Take a moment, think about it. By the way, feminists will be very happy to hear the answer to that question. Any thoughts? Any guesses? The most intimidating force to men is women's sexuality, right? As some of you know, evolutionary psychology has quite a bit to say about that. Many phenomena exist in their form because of men's uh, great worry regarding paternity uncertainty. So, for example, if you look at patterns of homicide where women are the victims from around the world, this is from the work by Martin Daly and Margot Wilson in their incredible book Homicide. Many of you might remember that that's the book that I had read as a first semester doctoral student at Cornell that set me off on my evolutionary psychology career. So the greatest threat to a woman in terms of her physical safety stems from her long-term male partner, who typically will attack her, harm her, and in many cases kill her, either for suspected or realized infidelity. And of course, the reason is very simple from an evolutionary perspective. We are a biparental species where human males invest actually quite a lot in their offspring. We are certainly the champion dads across mammalian species. And so because of that, it would not make very good sense for men to have evolved a laissez-faire attitude to women's philandering, if you like. And so, of course, they've evolved cognitive, emotional, behavioral strategies to try to curb women's sexuality. And that comes in many forms, right? So, for example, the sexual double standard exists precisely because there is a differential calculus when it comes to the costs and benefits of men and women mating indiscriminately. That's why most people are more concerned if their daughters engage in indiscriminate sexual behavior than they do if their sons do so. And that's not because of just random arbitrary socialization forces. That's because socialization forces exist in their form because of biology. So it's nurture due to nature, right? And so let's link this now to other forms, other ways by which men throughout history have sought to control women's sexualities. Well, there are all sorts of ways that men have sought to achieve that goal. One of which is through religious texts. So you could look at countless different religious traditions, and you will quickly come to the conclusion that God seems to be uniquely concerned with women, female chastity, and certainly typically much more so than male chastity. There's actually a study by a Darwinian historian, her name is Laura Betzik, that had looked at, she had done a content analysis of the Old Testament looking at how many women are associated to a man. In other words, how a given man in the Bible or in the Old Testament, how many women does he have as sexual partners as a function of his status? And of course, what she found is the typical correlation that you see in all sorts of settings. Men of higher status have sexual access to more women. And so even in the Old Testament, it seems that Darwin was very much alive. And so if we look specifically at Abrahamic religions, but we don't need to only look at those religions or those only at religion, we also look at cultural practices. All of these mechanisms are there to ultimately thwart the sexual desire of women. And by doing so, this allows me to gain some solace in being more assured that any child that I might have with a particular woman might be mine. And so I'd like to read a short passage from my 2007 book, The Evolutionary Basis of Consumption. This is on page 13. So let me just read it to you and then I'll comment a bit. So Dykman, 1979, has argued that many practices such as foot binding in China, sequestering, example, in harems, and modest dress codes under Sharia are meant to ensure chastity, thus increasing a man's paternity certainty. Exactly what I've been talking about. Strassman, 1992 and 1996, proposed that women's sequestration during their menses are quite similar cross-culturally and serve as honest signals of their reproductive states, thus augmenting men's paternity certainty. Other draconian practices meant to control women's sexuality, including the wearing of a chastity belt and the dreadful practices of infibulation, shutting, I mean, literally sewing a woman's genitalia, and clitoridectomy, cutting off of the clitoris, can be found in numerous cultures. Each of the latter historical examples is rooted in a common Darwinian heritage, which by definition transcends time and place. So again, religious and cultural practices, unless you genuinely wish to attribute them, at least in the religious case, to a divine supernatural source, are ultimately very much rooted in very earthly Darwinian goals. And in this case, very much related to one overriding objective, and that is controlling women's sexuality. So if you're talking about rape culture and patriarchal cultures and so on, don't point to current United States as an example of patriarchal culture. Point to the cultures where Abrahamic faiths have arisen from as examples of, the epitome of patriarchal cultures, where it was really incumbent on men to control women's sexuality. Again, also think about, for example, in harems, what did you have? You have the ruler who then takes men to protect those women, but he turns them into eunuchs. Why does he do that? Because, of course, he doesn't want those young, strong, powerful men to be around all of these beautiful women that the ruler has collected for his own sexual pleasure. So ultimately, nothing resides outside our biology, even our religious texts. And so if we now link that to some of the current debates regarding the niqab and the burqa and the hijab and so on, it doesn't take a profoundly sophisticated evolutionary psychologist to understand that ultimately all of these divine edicts are rooted in very, very earthly desires, and that is, I need to make sure that my women are under my control, and one of the ways that I do that is I institute all sorts of mechanisms, religious, cultural, social, to ensure that they don't stray. So there you have it, folks. We don't need to refer to supernatural causes for phenomena that ultimately can be explained very easily from an evolutionary lens. I wish you all a good weekend. Talk to you soon. Ciao.